Apostrophe CMS onboarding series. Adding assets. In an Apostrophe project, you have multiple options for where to add assets. It is all dependent on how you feel most comfortable organizing your codebase. Apostrophe automatically provides a webpack-powered process for bundling project front-end, JavaScript, and style sheets. You can elect to use SCSS or CSS in your styling, and Apostrophe will compile and bundle it for delivery to the front end. The Webpack configuration can be altered to include additional file types, additional processing steps, or aid in codebase organization. You can also elect to use your own build process or opt resources out of the built-in build process. In this tutorial, we are going to cover where assets can be added to your project. We will also look at how we can exempt files from being processed by Webpack, plus how to extend Webpack. Finally, we will touch on the topic of adding static assets like logo images, where they can be accessed using relative URLs. If you are electing to follow this tutorial series using the associated GitHub repository, the code in this tutorial is located in the branch sec2-3-assets. You can find the link to the repository in the comments below. In this tutorial, we will be installing Bootstrap as a dependency, so make sure to run npm update after switching. Again, your project assets can be stored in multiple places. You can choose to add them to a central location or to individual project modules. In this case, we're going to take advantage of the starter kit modules/asset. This module extends the core Apostrophe CMS module, not the Apostrophe CMS/asset module. The modules asset folder can be renamed if you're worried that the similarity in names will prove confusing. Please note that if you elect to change the name of the module, you will also have to change the app.js file to register the new name. We aren't going to alter the index.js file of this module, but it is worth opening it and taking a look at a key customization function. This module has a single handlers configuration function. Handlers listen for Apostrophe modules, both core and custom, to emit a named signal. This handler listens for the @Apostrophe CMS/page module to emit the before send server event. This event is triggered just before a requested page is rendered and sent as a response. It is a good time in the request cycle to adjust the data available to the template by amending any information to the rec.data object. In this case, the handler is checking the node-env environment variable. If it is set to production, then the isDev property will be set to false. This will be available in the template as data.isDev. This can be useful for only outputting debugging info if the project is in development, for example. Our main interest for this tutorial is the UI/source folder. Any number of modules can have this folder, and the two index files in this folder will be auto-discovered during the Webpack build and added to the front-end asset bundles. The assets will be added to the bundle in the order that the modules are registered in the app.js file. This can be important for correct cascading of styles. It is also of note that if you have JavaScript in two different module UI/source folders that import the same dependencies, the Apostrophe Webpack build is smart enough to only include that resource once. In the starter kit project, the UI/source folder contains two files, index.js and index.scss. Any front-end assets that we want to be bundled for client-side delivery either need to be added to these files or imported by these files. We're going to start by modifying the index.scss file to bring our Bootstrap framework CSS into the project. There are multiple ways that Bootstrap can be installed in your project. We're going to elect to install it as an npm package. Start by navigating to the root directory of your project and running npm install bootstrap. Next, open up the modules asset UI source index.scss file. Inside are a series of import statements. The topmost one imports the popular normalize.css CSS resets file. The remainder of the import statements bring in starter kit specific styling from the SCSS folder in the same directory. The Bootstrap project brings in its own CSS resets, so we can delete all the contents of this file. Next, add in Bootstrap using @import bootstrap. This will bring the Bootstrap CSS in from the node package. All of our other styling will be imported before this so that any variables we add will be brought properly into the Bootstrap framework. At this point, you can delete the contents of the SCSS folder in this directory. We'll begin by adding back some custom styling next. Although this project won't be using any Bootstrap components, only styling, we can also import the Bootstrap JavaScript. Open the UI source index.js file. You can elect to get rid of the console log that is in the export default function, but don't delete the function itself. At the top of the file, before the export, add in const bootstrap equals require bootstrap. Your code linter may complain that you are creating a constant but never using it, but that's fine. The Apostrophe Webpack will still import the Bootstrap JavaScript and make it available on the front end for use. If we spin our project up now using npm run dev, both the top bar and footer should look much more reasonably styled. We still need to start adding some specific styling to make it look like our final site, but Bootstrap is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us. I'm not going to explain the styling of this page in depth, as it is project specific and not specific to Apostrophe. I'm going to create 3 files within the modules asset UI source SCSS folder. You can delete the files that are already in this folder, as we won't be using them. You can get the content of each of the files I'll be creating from the GitHub repo links. The underscore theme settings.scss file contains all the project-wide variables for brand colors and look. The underscore theme main.scss file contains some project-wide settings, like font families and sizes for heading. Plus, it imports 2 fonts from Google Fonts. Finally, the underscore theme topbar.scss file contains styling specific to our header fragment top bar. To bring these style sheets into our project, we also need to add them into our index.scss file. Now our top bar and footer look a lot more like our final project. Just to underscore, the file naming conventions that have been used for this project are a personal choice. All that you need to remember is that all of your style sheets, however they are named, should be imported into the index.scss file of the UI/source folder for inclusion in the final front-end bundle. Within your project, you can store static assets, the ones hard-coded into the template, not the user-uploaded ones, in several different locations. Where you store them depends a bit on how those assets will be used. The first location is within the project level public folder. Assets in this folder will be available within your templates via URL. For example, an image file placed at public/images/logo.png will be available at https:/myproject.com/images/logo.png. Any assets shared this way will not trigger a cache reload if they are edited, so it should be used for assets that are very rarely updated, like a brand logo or favicons. A second potential drawback of this mechanism of adding assets is that relative links like URL/images/logo.png will not work if the CSS and JS are being served from an S3 bucket or CDN, which no longer have the public folder in their directory structure. To allow the use of relative URLs and to add cache busting, Apostrophe allows you to add static assets into a public folder placed in any module. We will use this method to add a favicon to our project. Again, open the modules/assets folder and create a public/favicon folder. We will copy our favicon image from the GitHub repository into this folder. Note that in the original project, I was loading multiple images of different sizes. This isn't really necessary any longer in modern browsers, so I've selected to use the largest image. Now that we have the asset available in our folder, we need to add it into our pages. Since this favicon will be on every page of our website, we will add a link into the views/layout.html file. Opening this file, we will add the favicon into the head of our pages following the title block. The @cms/template/outerlayout-base.html file offers 2 additional blocks in the head section. The standard head block contains the viewport meta information. If we choose to add our favicons in this section, we would need to use super so that we don't lose this information. Instead, we can add it to the second block, extra head. Add the following code after the title block. To get the URL of our asset, we are using the apos.asset.url helper. This will resolve a relative URL pointing in this case at the modules/asset/favicon folder within the Apos frontend release folder. Now, if we switch back over to our site and refresh, we can see our favicon being loaded in. You may choose to use a customized build process powered by another bundler. In this case, you can use the Modules, Custom Module, UI, Public folder. Much like the Modules, Custom Module, Public folder, files added to this folder will be brought into the corresponding JavaScript or CSS asset bundle that is added to the front end. The files in this folder will not be compiled or interpreted prior to adding to the asset bundle. Any files that depend on import or require or style sheets that need a preprocessor must be put through a build process before they are added into this folder. There are cases where your project may use a different CSS preprocessor or need to use file types that the standard Apostrophe Webpack process doesn't support. You can modify the configuration of the process through the top-level Webpack property from any project module. There are 3 different properties that Webpack accepts. For the moment, we will only cover extensions. You can read about extensions options in the documentation, and we will cover the third, bundles, in the tutorial on widgets. The extensions property takes an object of named objects. Each of these named objects should be set to an object that will be merged into the existing Webpack configuration. The structure of this configuration comes from the Webpack configuration specs, which you can find linked in the comments below. Because the extensions are named, you can elect to override the extension of one module in another module by passing the extension of the same name. As you may have guessed, the extension options allows you to extend rather than override a previously defined extension. This example creates an extension named extension name. It adds to the Webpack resolve configuration option. This would then create an alias that you could use within files in the modules, custom module, UI, source folder. This is very useful if you have a lot of helper files in your project. In this tutorial, the focus was on handling assets in an Apostrophe project. Multiple choices were covered regarding where assets can be placed based on codebase organization preferences. You can either add your styling and code on a per module basis or consolidate it in a single module. Special attention was given to the UI source folder, the role of the index.js file and the index.scss files in this folder, and the addition of the Bootstrap framework to the project. The tutorial also explored managing static assets, detailing 2 methods, either through the project-level public folder or a modules custom module public folder in any module. Advantages of adding at the module level were also discussed, including relative URLs and cache busting. This allowed us to include favicons in our project. Additionally, the tutorial explained that Apostrophe, with its built-in Webpack-powered process, can manage project front-end JavaScript and style sheets, compiling and bundling them for front-end delivery. Tips on modifying the project's Webpack configuration were also provided. The example in this tutorial illustrates how you could add an alias to further assist with project codebase organization. Of course, modifications to the Webpack configuration for other JavaScript and CSS processing are also possible. Looking ahead, the next focus will be on widgets. These tools enable editors to add layout and content to the page and piece areas. Several widgets will be created, ranging from a basic column layout widget to a more complex ratings widget. This will offer insights into adding icons to projects, provide a deeper understanding of field schema conditionals and template helper functions, and introduce async components. If you have any questions about this tutorial or want more help starting your Apostrophe CMS project, please join our vibrant community in Discord. You can join right now by following the link in the comments. We hope that you will continue along with our tutorial series and subscribe to the other great videos in our channel.